Everybody more or less calls me Dr. A because it's easier to pronounce. And as I think I tell every class, the A can stand for anything you want, depending on like if I'm handing exams back and you're getting your grades, and you won't even be disrespectful if you're thinking something and you're saying something else. As far as my background, I've been at Emory for 6 years. I'm an associate professor in the chair of the biology department. I've been teaching undergrads for 25 years. I come from Boston, at least, from the last 20 odd years. That's where I was before I came here. My wife is at Northeastern University. I have 3 kids. One is a mechanical engineer who's finishing up at Northeastern University. He's currently in California on a 6-month co-op working with Abbott bioengineering, so doing some COVID-19 fun stuff. My oldest daughter is graduating from the University of Chicago for grad school tomorrow. She's an Egyptian archaeologist. So I have to drive to Chicago either very late tonight or very early tomorrow morning to go pick her up and all the rest of that stuff. And then I have a 16-year-old who's a sophomore in high school, who's hanging out in Chicago doing the rest of her academic year in line because she doesn't want to hang out with her parents either in Boston or Virginia. So I've been playing the bio game for, what am I, 53? So more than half my life. I mean, essentially, I always liked biology as a kid. I always played with dead things. If they weren't dead, I usually made them dead. So I could do things like that. I mean, come on, let's not sugarcoat it. So sometimes, I used to do hunting, trapping. Field biology was kind of my thing as a kid. I went to my undergrad at Boston University, changed major 6 times, started as a bio major, finished as a bio major, got way too many credits, but I learned a lot about a lot of other things that actually make me a more well-rounded person. So, even though I came from a big university for undergrad, I did get a lot of the liberal arts stuff that we do kind of focus in here on Emory. I did my master's at Northeastern University, focusing on vertebrate zoology. So I study things that have backbones. I kind of specialized in vertebrate paleontology, and I did research on reptiles and amphibians, kind of crossing over from the end of the dinosaurs time frame to after the dinosaurs time frame, because they didn't go extinct, but their big cousins did. So made it kind of interesting. What else? Got my PhD, went back to Northeastern University to get my PhD there. Did 2 different PhD research projects. First one was on vector-borne disease, looking at mechanical vectors like geese as distributors of parasitic and infectious disease-causing organisms. And then I switched, I think a year or 2 into that PhD project because somebody else was doing something a little too similar, so I had to kind of switch. It's the importance of doing a really good literature search. If you don't do one, it comes back and bites you in the ass. And profanity, oh no. And then I focused on evolutionary biogeography and mammalian evolution. So from my background, it's kind of like I'm your typical jack of all trades, master of none. I mean, if you try to figure out what I like to do for research, you wouldn't really, be able to guess, because, at one point I'll take you guys to the department webpage and show you all the faculty and show you, kind of walk you through that if you haven't taken a look at it yet. But I've had a lot of research students here at Emory, because one of the things that you do as part of the Bachelor of Science in Biology is you do kind of a mentored / independent, at least one research project. And we used to call it a senior independent research project, but we've been pushing you guys to start earlier and earlier and earlier in the process of your education, because the more research you do, the more projects you get involved in, the more hands-on learning you get into, the whole goal is to turn you into a well-rounded biologist, not a specialist in any particular area. So I've had students that have worked on 3 different research projects, mostly with me, but 3 separate projects over the course of 3 or 4 years since they've been working with me. And some of them have been island biogeography projects, looking at small mammals that live on the coastal islands up in the Northeast and the Canadian Maritimes, looking at kind of like the evolutionary biogeography of those, vector-borne disease, looking at ticks, Lyme disease, rickettsial diseases in the Southern Appalachians, parasitic protozoa like Cryptosporidium and Giardia being transmitted by birds as they go from one body of water to another body of water, evolution of antibiotic resistance in the gut microflora of horses and domesticated animals, and looking at how that can that resistance can transfer across species, so from animals to people. And again, that kind of ties into vector-borne disease as well, and skeletal pathologies of mammals. For example, one of my students is looking at non-human primates. We're doing stuff in various research collections, looking at a lot of the bone diseases that you see in humans. She wants to be an orthopedic surgeon, after she's done with Emory. And we got talking in Gen Bio last fall. She was a freshman. And from that point, we started talking. I picked her up as a student. She got 2 grants to support her research. She has a summer fellowship this year that's supposed to be working with me, and we're supposed to travel to museums, but COVID-19 kind of messed up our ability to travel to museums. So I've got her doing a lot of online museum stuff and disease-related stuff, and then we're going to go hit museums between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then into the spring. But we applied and got a fellowship for her from the Appalachian College Association, where she's getting paid $4,000 this summer to do her research, and we got an additional $1,000 to get her to travel to the various museums to do it. So, one of the things that you one of the things that you do as a bio, Abigail's like, oh man, I gotta sign off, but how do I do this now? One of the things that you do end up doing a lot, particularly with the BS in biology, is you learn how to design, develop, and execute research. And just because, you're a college freshman, for example, it doesn't mean you can't start research now, because essentially we're always looking for students that are really, really interested in getting into research as early as possible, because it's riddled with mistakes, failures. Most of the time you fail more than you succeed in science. If you've ever done experimental work in labs, 9 times out of 10, you're like, well, it didn't work. This is what you should have seen, and we're going to use these data so you can actually finish the analysis, because most of the time something gets screwed up. So the more research you do during the time you're at Emory, the greater the likelihood is you're going to get the hang of it. And if you decide to go on to graduate research programs, one, it helps you get into those programs because they know you already know how to do it. Because part of what you also do when you do research with us is you present the results of the research you do at scientific meetings. You'll easily present at 2, sometimes 3 conferences over the course of your time as a bio major. The first one's always easy. We have you do it at Emory and Henry on Science Fest at Ampersand Day. But some students, it's like they've never sat there and presented anything to a room of 100+ people, and they're already freaking out about that. But then you do that. You go to a regional conference and you do a poster session, you do a talk the following year, and you network and you learn about the other research people are doing. So it's all tied into the kind of research-based curriculum that we have in biology to kind of get you guys used to um, applying the scientific method on top of building a really, really well-rounded background in biology. Because when you major in biology at Emory and Henry, regardless of what you want to do at the end, if you want to go to medical school, great. Both my parents are retired physicians. I'm the black sheep of the family. I'm the PhD. If you want to go to dental school, vet school, optometry school, doctor of physical therapy, physician's assistant, you can go to all of those with a biology degree. This is the big difference between when you look at like the biology degree and some of the more specialized like health science degrees, like exercise science or things like that. If you were thinking, oh, I want to go get a doctor of physical therapy because I want to, be a PT when I finish, and halfway through the program you decide, I actually think I want to do physician's assistant, or I want to go to medical school. It's like 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, because now you got to rearrange and restart and do a whole bunch of stuff because the programs are fundamentally different. Whereas with biology, it's kind of like it really does cover a lot of the bases so that you can go in any direction. And we've had graduates over the last few years go to PA, PT, MD, DO, vet school, and then miscellaneous and master's and PhD research-based programs. So the good thing about a Bachelor of Science in biology is it gives you a lot of flexibility about the direction that you want to go. Because like I said, I changed majors 6 times when I was your age. I mean, you're probably both about 18 years old. I got boots older than you. And I've been saying that for a long, you're even younger, you're 17 or 16, Landry. Okay. So, are you a rising senior, or are you just ahead of the game? Okay. So you still have time to think, which is good. But that's the thing. It's kind of like, you're most interested in whatever you did last. And if you keep your options open, I mean, as much as I'd like to say, come to Emory and Henry, major in biology, do the BS, because that's like the Tesla versus like, okay, I could do a BA in biology, and that's like your Chevy Volt. Everybody wants a Tesla. I used to say, this is the Cadillac, and this is just your basic Chevy, and people are like, what's a Cadillac? And I'm just like, oh, never mind. So we go with the Tesla and the Chevy Volt now, or the Prius, something kind of in between. But essentially, if you come in and you're like, I want to do biology, I really like biology, and I think I want to go into graduate health science, MD, PA, PT, whatever. You're like, okay, that's cool. But don't focus so far down at the end game that you kind of like don't really pay attention to the 4 years in between, because whatever you choose to do after you graduate at Emory and Henry or wherever you end up finally choosing to go, it's got to be what you want to do. It's not what your parents want you to do. And I hope your parents aren't in the background listening, because then they're going to come into the screen and be like, "Oh, what are you saying? She wants to be a doctor." And then you'll be like, "Well, actually, I want to be an interpretive dance major." You can still become an MD if you're an interpretive dance major. It's just a little bit harder to go that route, because you don't want to figure out that you're not good in science when you've just paid that first $100,000 of tuition for medical school, and then you're like, yeah, I don't feel like I'm prepared for this. So whatever major you choose to do it because you really like it, because this is the only time, the next 4 years, whenever you get into college and start that game, that's the only choice you're going to have relative to the classes that you take. Taking a class because you're like, oh, I've always wanted to take this, pottery class, and that'll fulfill my artistic expression mode. But, after you get done with this and then you go on to grad school, for the better part, you don't have as much choice, particularly if it's a graduate professional program like medical school, and those types. They're going to tell you what you're going to take, when you're going to take it, whether you like it or not, they don't care. That's the curriculum, and that's what you're going to do. At least with undergraduate college, you get some degree of choice. Even in the things, it's like you got to take one course in this area, and maybe you have like 20 different choices of the courses that would fulfill that particular thing. In the bio major, like I said before, you become a well-rounded biologist. You're not a molecular biologist. You're not a biochemist. You're not a physiologist. You're not an anatomist. You're not an ecologist or zoologist. It's like you're a biologist, and you know enough about all of those areas so that if you decide you're like, I want to go to graduate school and I want to go into ecology because I like the outdoors. I like doing this and that, but I don't know if I want to do plants or animals. Maybe I want to do both. Well, you've had enough training so that you kind of understand what the role of plants and animals are and how they interact in the system. And then you've had enough basic ecology that you could go on and you could do a graduate program in ecology or a graduate program in zoology or botany or biochemistry or whatever you want. So you're a biologist first, and then you can specialize later. The cool thing too is depending on how many extra courses you already have from either AP, dual enrollment, things like that, most people tend to think you're like, hey, if I have all these extra courses that I've already taken in high school, I can finish college sooner. I can get out in 3 years instead of 4, and then I can go on and do my thing. Yeah, you could do that. Usually it's never that simple and never that easy. You'll wind up doing like 3.5 years or an extra semester here and there, or it winds up being 4 years anyway. Reality of the situation is the more courses you take in your particular major, maybe you say, okay, I'm going to take a few extra bio courses because I have that flexibility built in because I don't need to take some of these courses that I already took in high school, dual enrollment or AP. It makes you better at your chosen area. Or you're like, well, I have to take 4 chemistry courses for biology. Are either one of you thinking going like medicine in the future? Maybe, yes, and maybe. Okay, so if you're there, you're like, okay, well, I want to go to med school. You have to take biochemistry. It's like, okay, well, if you take biochemistry and you count it towards a chemistry minor, and then you take, say, microbiology, because you're like, well, microbiology is important for being a physician because of all the infectious diseases that are caused by bacteria and viruses and various things like that kind of get lumped into microbiology. But then you only need one more course, and now you have a chemistry minor. And there's a lot of chemistry, a lot of biochemistry, and a lot of physiology when you think about medicine. So don't be in a rush to get out. I know it all, it's like you can save money, but it's kind of like if you also try to pack, you've heard the expression, if you try to pack 10 pounds of in a 5-pound bag, you get covered in a lot of crap because the bag rips and everything gets messy. If you try to shortcut the process, because I was talking to somebody for about an hour and a half this morning who was a new bio major, and they had a bunch of dual enrollment courses, and her father basically was like, well, is it possible to finish in 3 years instead of 4 because of those courses? And I said, yeah, it's possible, but then you're stacking a lot of the tougher courses at the same time, and it stresses you out. You might not be able to fit everything in. You might have to take summer courses anyway. And if you don't do well because you're taking organic chemistry and physics at the same time, or organic chemistry, physics, and biochemistry at the same time, and you don't do well in those courses, the medical schools that are looking at your transcripts are going to be like, well, pretty late in the game, she wasn't handling, or he wasn't handling a lot of hard courses at the same time pretty well. All courses in medical school taken at the same time are hard courses. So it sends kind of a, is this person going to be able to handle the curriculum in med school if they're really trying, if they're struggling now when they're taking several hard courses at the same time. So it can be very dangerous if you try to finish early just for the sake of money. Because bottom line is, whatever debt, and again, I've got 2 kids in college, grad school, and one more coming in 2 years. So, I figure I'm going to be working till I'm 100 just to pay everything off so they can do what they have to do. And that's okay, because that's what you do as a parent. But, when you're spending a lot of money, one more semester, one more year at the undergrad level, when you're thinking about, if you go to medical school, you're looking at $100,000 a year in cost. You want to be able to borrow that money from the bank to get that loan to go to medical school. And if you're saving, a few $1,000s, $10,000 because you finish a little bit early, but you don't do as well and then you don't get into medical school, it wasn't really worth, the pittance of saving in the long run, because you're gonna end up making at least $1 million to $2 million in any career over the course of your lifetime, working on average 20, 30, 35 years, because everybody lives longer now. So it's easy to say, don't worry about the money situation now, because now is when you're worrying about the money situation. But you always have to think kind of the long term. And sometimes it's better to take a little bit more time, take a few more courses, do a little bit more research, because when you think about the future, anything graduate, if you've made the cut for grades, your GPA is this, your SAT or your GRE scores, your MCAT scores are this, and it's gotten you to the point of interview, they're not going to talk to you about your grades in that interview. Every student that I've had, I think I've had 4 in the last 6 years that have gone on to medical school. In every interview they had, they never talked about their grades, because their grades were good enough to get them the interview. Also, what they did besides the academic stuff got them the interview. And the fact that they all did research, and they all did a lot of research, that's all they talked about with the people on those interview committees, because that's what made them stand out from all those other applicants, because most kids don't get to do a lot of independent research. You go to the big universities, you figure this is how many kids there are compared to how many faculty who are not really focused on the undergraduate side of things. They're more focused on the graduate side and their own research. And they teach undergraduate courses, at the big researching, universities, because, well, they have to. It's not that they want to. Whereas here, we all want to. And it's kind of like the research that we do and the research we do with you guys, that's what's going to make you stand out compared to everybody else in the game. And when they look at the curriculum in the biology department, they're going to see that you've taken all the usual courses. All bio majors take gen biology, organismal bio, which is kind of like zoology and botany. You all take genetics. You all take evolutionary biology. The BSs all do research. So you have like a research seminar, junior seminar, senior seminar. And so everybody's taking that core set of courses. And then everybody takes 4 upper level electives. And you take one elective, at least one elective, from each of the 4 core areas. We have an ecology area. So you have 3, maybe 4 courses to choose from that fulfill that requirement. You have a cell molecular category, cell molecular biochemical or biochemistry area. And there are 3 courses right now that are in that block. So you pick one of those. You have an organismal category, so you can take, vertebrate zoology or tropical biology, which is a course that I teach along with the plant population genetics professor, Dr. Brezoir. It's essentially neotropical biology, zoology, botany, ecology, and we take students at the end of the course. We always teach it in the spring on even years. At the end of the course, we take students for 2 weeks into the field in Panama to run around in the jungle, cloud forest, and actually, you get to see all the stuff that we talked about in the class, and you execute team research projects that you've been developing over the course of the semester when you're down in country. And it also fulfills your study, your abroad requirement for the college. So it kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone. But it's always fun, to do that. We didn't get to go this year because of the pandemic, but I'm probably going to take whoever's still around that wants to go from this past year next year. And then I'd probably do it again the following year. And then you take an upper level structure function category. So that's where you could take a physiology course, you could take a comparative anatomy course or a developmental biology course. So, you get a piece of the 4 core areas of biology plus evolution plus genetics and some of the basic stuff. And then if you have extra courses because you took a bunch of stuff while you were in high school, you're like, I can take an extra biology course or take an extra chemistry course. For me, when I was an undergrad at Boston University, when I finally figured out after, six turns of the wheel that I want to be a bio major, I took a bunch of extra biology courses. I think I took 4 or 5 extra bio courses because my parents were just like, oh, if you want to stay another year, stay another year and take some more biology courses. So, and I didn't really know how important some of those courses would be until 10, 15, 20 years. Usually I figured it out when I actually had to start teaching stuff that was connected to undergraduate stuff that I did or some other stuff in grad school that they made me do. I was kind of like, well, I'm actually glad now that they made me take these particular courses outside of my interests, because all I cared about were animals. Zoology was my thing. I didn't care about molecular biology. They made me take some of it, and a big chunk of my PhD research was molecular work, looking at animals and looking at the evolutionary patterns of dispersal, on these islands after the last ice age. So it's kind of, you never know what you're going to need until you need it. It's kind of like, well, it's never a problem until it's a problem. So it's like, we try to avoid the problems. It's like, we give you enough information so knowing you're going to change your mind, knowing you're going to have different opportunities once you leave Emory, that you may really need to recall some of that information from organismal biology when Dr. A was talking about that pesky zoonotic diseases of animals jumping into people. Why do we care about that? Well, we're in a pandemic and basically it's an animal disease that jumped species barriers and came into people. So it's like one of the, this past spring when I was talking about that at the very beginning of the term, I said, anybody ever hear of SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome, caused by a coronavirus, first kind of small pandemic in 2003. I remember that one, because I was caught up in that one. And then I said, there's a SARS corona variant 2 right now in China that is starting to cause problems. And they're like, oh, you think this is going to be a problem? A lot of people are saying, oh, it's, I'm like, wait, watch. So like almost every class that we met, I'd pull up the Johns Hopkins site and show, it's like, look, the cases are increasing in number. Oh, look, they're starting to occur here. And you're drawing the lines. And I'm like, you will not be coming back after spring break because we are going to send you home and you're not going to be allowed to come back because the pandemic is going to really be in full swing. And it's like, I hate being right about these things, but it's kind of like, this is also why a lot of the stuff we make you take, that you don't see the point of it now, you see the point of it later when it really matters. And you're kind of like, it's kind of cool because, you can understand what, the medical experts are talking about, or the epidemiologists are talking about, because, maybe we spent a week or 2 weeks talking about this in one class. You got another piece of it in another class, looking at molecular genetics and looking at, how mutations can cause major problems later down the line. So it's kind of, I really like our program. One in part because it's better than the ones that I came from. And part of the reason why we developed it the way we have it now is because all of us were unhappy fundamentally with the education that we got as undergrads relative to biology, and said, we've got to make it better here for the students that are coming to Emory. And both of you are looking at a potentially good time to come, because we're looking at not changing, but we're going to start offering concentrations or tracks in biology. So there's going to be one track that's like a biomedical science track. So if you're really into biomedical technology, if you're into molecular biology, biochemistry, you're still going to have to take, some of the other things to keep you well-rounded. But if you're thinking, I want to go to med school, I want to go to vet school or something along those lines, there are specific courses that you can pick that are going to make you a stronger candidate for that. We're also going to have either an organismal and evolutionary biology track or probably a wildlife and conservation biology track. So for the ones who are like, I really like the outdoor stuff, I really like animals, I really like plants, I'm like, okay, I can take some molecular biology, that's okay, because it connects to it. You concentrate in that track. We're also going to have a health sciences concentration. For those that want to go on to like DPT programs for physical therapy, physician's assistant, nurse practitioner, optometry, things like that. So it's there'll be a little bit more defined pathways depending on what you want to do. But the good thing is, even if you change your mind, sophomore year, junior year, the core courses that you're taking are the same. So you could just switch and then change direction. And it's not like you have to back up, take extra courses, and go from there. So biology is going to be changing and it's going to be evolving, but it's not going to go to producing specialists. It's like, you just have a little bit more information, more coursework in this area, but you're still a well-rounded biologist in the end. So let me just show you real quick in like 2 minutes of the department site, and then I'll let you guys introduce yourselves, tell me a little bit about yourselves, and ask questions. So sooner or later, I'll get good at the whole Zoom thing, just when we actually get back to face-to-face and don't have to do it anymore. But I'm probably still going to do it just to record classes, so when you miss class because you're sick or whatever the case is, you still have the whole class that you can watch after the fact. All right, so here's our lovely Emory and Henry pond. Spent a lot of money on that pond, getting it nice. But at least you can fly fish, that we do fly fishing courses so you can learn how to fly fish, and, they cast and they practice in the pond. So if you go to the general Emory and Henry site, then you go to academics, click on academics. There's Chip Fay, he's one of the physics and engineering science professors. Scroll down, there's all the cool things that you can study at Emory, but the coolest one is biology. And it's right there, right? So you click on that, oh look, so that's Madison, that's Liberty, and that's Carly. All three of them were my research students. I had them in multiple courses for their entire time at Emory. That picture was taken at the Association of Southeastern Biologists meeting in Memphis in 2019. All three of them presented their research. It was the second time for Madison and Liberty presenting their research at that meeting. Madison's starting at William and Mary for a master's in microbiology. Her research was on antibiotic resistance in wild horses. So she was looking at the gut microbiome in horses from the Outer Banks Islands. I don't know if you all have heard of the Grayson Highlands Mountains ponies. So she looked at those guys. Plus she also looked at horses from the Emory and Henry barn and did kind of a comparative antibiotic resistance analysis. She spent last summer at James Madison in an R1 lab doing antibiotic resistance research, because they were like, they liked her project, they liked her presentation at the meeting, and she applied for a Friends of the Sciences fellowship, which would basically pay $5,000 for her to go and work with a researcher at a big research university for the summer. And she actually was offered a spot in the PhD program at James Madison, but she turned that one down and went to William and Mary because she liked the grad students and the professors at William and Mary better. But that's the thing. It's kind of like the research that she did, and she initially wanted to go to medical school, and then she changed direction after she got into the research and doing a lot of the field work. She may still wind up in medicine later down the line, but I think right now she's thinking PhD in microbiology and looking at infectious disease and things like that. Liberty, she was working on parasitic protozoans, so like Cryptosporidium, Giardia. These are small single-celled eukaryotic organisms that cause diarrheal disease. And she was doing a lot of field work and lab work. She was collecting a lot of Canada goose feces from coastal North Carolina and Virginia all the way to Tennessee, looking at different bodies of water and testing the feces, looking for the presence of these parasitic organisms that cause diarrheal disease in people, and looking at the perspective that the geese are actually transmitting these organisms to other geese in different populations, when they stop and they hang out, they poop, they eat with other birds. So it was kind of a vector-borne ecology project, and that was actually the first PhD project that I was working on, and ended up not doing it, and Liberty was interested in it, and she worked on that project for about 2.5 years. So fundamentally, about the same as a master's level project that she did. Carly, the one on the right, and Liberty is going to Ohio State University for a master's in epidemiology and public health, and then she's going to continue on in that program for a PhD in microbiology. And then Carly on the right, she wanted to go to vet school. Her project with me, she was looking at healed fractures in the long bones, so the legs and the arms, of flying squirrels, tree squirrels, and ground squirrels, kind of looking at, who has higher rates of incidence of healed fractures, because most of the time you think when an animal breaks its bones in the wild and there's no veterinary intervention, it's going to die. Well, turns out that's not the case, because we found a lot of healed fractures in specimens in the museum in flying squirrels, tree squirrels, and they do survive. And she's going to be at NC State starting in the fall, doing a Master of Science in Animal Science, and is probably going to apply for vet school after that. And it ended up just being the three of us driving to Memphis for that meeting that year, because other people they just couldn't go. It was one of those weird years. But I take students every year to that meeting. This year it was canceled because of COVID-19, but we were going to Jacksonville. Madison and Liberty were going to go give talks and present their research this time around. And then we had 6 other students presenting at that meeting, and another 5 couple that were freshmen just going so that they could actually experience a scientific meeting and kind of see what kind of research other people were doing. So the sooner you get into research, the better off you're going to be. I mean, I picked up 3 freshmen this year. One's already got 2 grants. She's got a summer fellowship, and she's going to be working on non-human primate skeletal pathologies with me at Harvard and a couple of other museums that we're going to go to. So she got in early, right after Gen Bio. We just started talking, and she wants to be an orthopedic surgeon. So I'm like, well, I got a project that you might be interested in, and that's usually the way things tend to work out. It's kind of like you can get into the research in most cases as soon as you want to give it a try. Because again, the more research you do, and the different, if you do 2, 3 different projects, even if it's with the same person, but you're doing, a continuous project that's evolving and spins off a new project, once you've, knocked one part of it out after a year or a year and a half, every time you do the next project, it's easier and it's better than the previous one. So you get really good at applying the scientific method, and the more coursework you have under your belt as you get farther along, everything starts to, kind of connect and come together. So again, when you get the opportunity, there's Dr. Felix. He's an evolutionary biologist, ichthyologist. He specializes in Cretaceous fishes and also moray eels. That's kind of his thing. That's a human anatomy course, I think, that he was teaching at that point in time, because I recognize a few of the people, and they tend not, actually, none of them are bio majors. these are all like psych majors and other things. You know, Rachel's like, yeah, I recognize Safa and I recognize a few of these other people. But it's like, again, you know, if you major in psychology, you have to minor in one of the natural sciences, and a lot of them minor in biology because they want to go to some type of graduate health science program. As far as facilities, you know, we've got a greenhouse that, you know, it's a research-based greenhouse. Dr. Fleet, who's our kind of like a plant biochemist, she also teaches genetics. She does a lot of work involving plants. Dr. Brezoir, he's a plant population geneticist. He does stuff with the greenhouse, and he also is kind of the curator of the herbarium, you know, a bunch of preserved plant specimens. So he does a lot of molecular work with those things too. We got a lot of molecular biology stuff. I'm not in the molecular biology mood right now. It's like, you know, I'll come back to that if anybody wants to. If any of you guys want to work on like island biogeography and molecular genetics of island mice, you know, I've got projects that you can work on to get your feet wet. And then I basically take care of the zoological teaching and research collection. We also have the Bartlett Crow Field Station, which it's about 72 acres, a bunch of different habitats. It's a great campus-owned research site that you can do field-based studies. We take you guys out there for several classes to do small projects, and you know, a lot of times you all just go out there on your own and you're kind of working on your projects, you know, unhindered by us old faculty. As far as research goes, again, just a few examples of some of the projects, presentations, things like that. You can click on, you know, our alumni and the cool stuff they do. And then let's see what else we have. Oh, the lovely faculty. All right, so we've got 6 faculty members in the Department of Biology plus a bunch of affiliated faculty. And there's me. Dr. Bova is currently in Afghanistan. He's in the Army with an environmental unit. So he's been there since October, and he'll be back hopefully he'll be back in July. He's an entomologist, so he studies insects. You know, that's kind of his thing. And he also studies diseases that insects can actually transmit to people. This young fellow over here, he's actually older than he looks. That's Dr. Brezoir. He's a plant population geneticist. Dr. Campbell, she's a microbiologist, so she does a lot of work with gut biome stuff, does a lot of research with colleagues at ETSU in Johnson City. So, you know, that's a good collaboration where, you know, you can actually work in 2 different settings because they have more resources at ETSU than we have here. This stern looking fellow here, that's Dr. Felix. He's actually my mentor. He was the chair of the department when they shanghaied me to come to Emory and Henry 6 years ago. And now I'm the chair of the department. I think I was hoodwinked somehow, but he works with Cretaceous fishes. He's a vertebrate paleontologist, ichthyologist. So fishes are his thing. He also teaches comparative anatomy, evolutionary bio. And then last but not least is Dr. Fleet. She's the natural science division head, plant biochemist, also teaches genetics, microbiology, biochemistry. So you will have all of us. At some point in time in the courses that you take in biology, you're going to have courses with every single faculty member in biology. In most cases, more than one. We have affiliated faculty that, you know, also do research along biological lines. Dr. Davis, he's tied in heavily to the environmental studies program. He's also chair of the geography department. Dr. Tears is the head of the equine studies program. She's an animal nutrition type, and she often, you know, she can also mentor students from our department. If you wanted to do something along the lines, like say, I'm thinking about going to vet school, you know, I want to work with the large animals, I want to be a large animal vet, you can do research with Dr. Patty. You can do that for your project, kind of crossing over into the equine study side. And, you know, a lot of students that want to go to vet school, we get a lot of double majors between equine studies and biology, you know, kind of heading down the vet track. Stephen Hopp is an ornithologist. He teaches a number of courses in the environmental studies program. And those are some of the courses that you can take those courses too. that kind of connect with the biology curriculum. Because again, there are certain courses outside of specific bio courses that you need to take, and you have options depending on what your interests are, where you can take them from. So a lot of the environmental studies courses, Dr. Hop teaches, and he's, a lot of fieldy type classes, which are always good. Dr. Hainsworth, she's in the chemistry department. She's also the director of the Bartlett Crow Field Station. She also teaches a lot of environmental studies as well as chemistry courses. Analytical chemistry is one of the courses that she teaches that a lot of the students who go for the minor in chemistry, because you're already taking 4, you just need 2 more. You take biochemistry, and then you take analytical chemistry, you got a chem minor. And then there's Dr. Boaz. He was the head of anatomy up at the School for Health Sciences. He's actually an MD, but he's also a PhD in integrative biology and paleoanthropology. So he's done a lot of work with hominid evolution, human evolution, prior to becoming an MD and kind of running the anatomy labs. But he's somebody that I'm still going to maintain a working relationship with, and probably have him come on with students for projects and things like that. But when you get the opportunity, check out the biology department website. You can look at the let's see, and this will be modified once we get the concentrations in there. We still have to add in kind of like a pre-med, pre-health, section, but you can look at, these are the courses that everybody takes, whether you're a BA or a BS in biology, and then these are the categories: the cell, molecular, biochem category, structure, function, population, ecology, and the typical courses that you would take. You take 1 from each of these. We're missing 1. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we're missing the upper level organismal. Go figure. Or no. This is messed up. I hate that. That's funny. So I got to make a change here. So basically you'd have 4 subject areas. This one actually should be upper level organismal. Structure, function, there'd be comparative anatomy, general physiology, developmental biology. So somebody messed up my department page, so I got to fix that. But check it out. And if you have questions about that, you can basically email me, and we can talk turkey about all the different things. But that's pretty much all I've got, in the 50 minutes that I've been talking. So now at this point in time, why don't you guys unmute yourselves? That way you can, you can tell me about yourselves and, what you like about biology and what you want to do with your lives. And then any questions you have, I can try to answer them.
Hi, I'm Abigail. Hey. I'm a recent graduate from high school, and I live on the side of Bristol.
Okay.
And so I only live about 25 minutes away from Emory's campus.
That's good.
Yeah. And I'm a cancer survivor, so that's one of the things that made me really interested in biology. And I also have a brother who has Down syndrome, and our mom is a nurse practitioner, so I've been around the medical field for my entire life. And I'm really interested in doing something in public health. I think epidemiology is like my top choice.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I mean, and we do have a lot of students that go that direction too. Okay. So it's kind of, we'll definitely talk more about that stuff, because, if that's the direction you want to go, we can kind of look at research projects that are connected to, that have an epidemiology focus on it, like looking at disease transmission within populations, among populations, across species, barriers, vector-borne disease. So it's kind of, that's a cool area. I mean, if I had the time, I would probably go get, because I took a couple of epidemiology courses, because my original research project was kind of looking at the epidemiology side of zoonotic diseases. And I wasn't sure what direction I wanted to go, so I was kind of like, well, I could always get a master's in public health. My wife was an epidemiologist for the state of Massachusetts at the state labs before she went to Northeastern. So she did a lot of foodborne illness epidemiological investigations, chasing down outbreaks and figuring out, where the bad, what caused all these people to get sick, that went to this wedding or things like that. So always interesting stuff. But no, that sounds pretty cool. And
Thank you.
have you decided, are you definitely coming to Emory, or are you still? Oh, excellent. So are you planning on living on campus in the fall?
I'm sorry. I'm actually going to commute. So
at least at the beginning, commute. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well, it saves money, and also you're kind of like, well, we're not done. We're not done with this pandemic yet, so
Right.
maybe it's best to just commute back and forth. But at some point in time, we'll get you on campus, and then you'll probably because that's part of what's really, really good about living on campus is you're not like, oh, I have to go home now, or oh, it's getting late, because so many students are working in the building, in McLaughlin Street, where the science building is, except for physics. We keep physics and math in another building because they're irritating. But so many students spend, until the late hours of night, in the labs, doing research, studying, group sessions. I usually see them because I'm there late at night most of the time anyway, because all my family's in other places, so I've got nothing else to do. Plus all the paperwork.
Always there.
I'm always there. It's sad. But
sometimes until 2:00 in the morning when the students are still there.
Yeah, and I'm like, you guys should go home, and they're like, you should go home, and I'm like, why don't we all go home? And then so it's not bad, but no, I mean, I think that'll be good, and then we'll definitely talk in the fall. Do you know what classes they've got you in at this point?
I still need to register for classes, but I'm signed up for the June registration, so it's not that far away.
Okay. Then if you have questions, or if you realistic, have you taken general biology, dual enrollment, or anything?
I haven't. I'm sorry, I have not.
Okay, no, that's okay, because then you get everything from us. So depending on your SAT scores, how you did in high school science and courses you've taken, it'll determine whether they put you right into Gen Bio for majors or put you into kind of the prereq course. But if your advisor isn't sure, I mean, realistically, you should either be going into Bio 117, that's the majors biology, or Bio 100, not 105, because that's the non-majors one and it doesn't count for us. Chemistry is another thing that you may want to consider, depending on what your math level is and where you place in math at school. But if it seems like they don't know which courses you should be in, make sure you tell them, I'm planning on being a BS in biology, if you're still thinking biology, and that way they put you into the right courses. And if they have questions, or if they're not sure, and you can say, well, I talked to Dr. A, and he said if we have any questions that we should email him, and then I can kind of advise you on what stuff to take, because I spend a lot of time redoing schedules for people that weren't done right, and I don't want you to get caught up in that scenario. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, sure, no problem. Oh sure, anytime. Okay. Landon, talk to me, Landon.
Hi, my name is Landon, and I like biology just because I've liked it forever, and my bio teacher is my best friend.
Okay.
I take care of her turtles.
Okay.
I want to do veterinary. I love reptiles. I have a lizard. I have a dog and a cat.
So you got your own animal farm at home there. There we go. And so you're a junior right now, or you're okay? So you'll be a senior next year. Okay. Well, I mean, the good thing is it's kind of like
on chickens.
Chickens are good. They're tasty.
I take in
I'm kidding. I mean, they are tasty, but you know. I mean, if you want to bring me a chicken, that's fine. We could do something with it in class. But eggs are always good. Developmental biology. But that's good. So you're at an interesting stage because it's like you have more time to kind of figure out what's the best fit for you for biology. And the good thing is once we get students back on campus, I'd recommend setting up an admissions visit, coming to campus. I mean, you already know Rachel, you already know me. We can have you sit in on a biology class. So you kind of, organismal bio is always fun because I'm at least entertaining in class. And you can sit in on a class and see, you're like, oh, this is kind of cool. We can show you the department, show you all the other stuff about Emory. And then that way, you can start making a list. These are the things that you should look for at any school that you're considering going to. What are your options for diversity of classes? How many faculty are there? Can I do undergraduate research? Or, is that part of the curriculum? And when can I start? So that, these are the kind of questions that, you start thinking, you're like, okay, well, I know what I could do if I went to Emory. And then you're like, oh, well, I could go to ETSU. And then you're like, well, okay, you can start here. You can do this and that. Or some places, UVA-wise, it might be like, yeah, well, we only have like 3 faculty members. So you can do some research, so you want to know what you can and can't do in the programs that you're comparing. And also you look at cost, and what else you can do, on campus, because what's really cool about this whole region down here that kind of sold it for me when I came down, because I was kind of like, I didn't even know where Emory was when I saw the job advertisement, because I'm only used to like northeastern Virginia around the DC area. And I looked at the map and I'm like, wow, that's like almost Tennessee, down, it's almost not Virginia. And then I came down and just all of the mountains in the Southern Appalachians and the high altitude communities on those mountains, a lot of them are relics from the last ice age. So studying the plants and the animals at those, above 5,000, 5,500 feet in elevation, I'm kind of looking at a lot of stuff that's more similar to what is up in New England and Southern Canada than, at lower elevations down here in the southeastern U.S. So it's kind of a lot of really cool field work and field studies that I can do with students, down here. And that's the thing. It's kind of like I get, that's why I have too many. I have like, I say too many, but it's never too many. I have about a dozen research students at any given point in time. There are about 60 students in biology, give or take. We usually graduate about 10 to 20 a year. So if you kind of look at each class being between 10 and 20, you got somewhere between 40 and 80 people who want to be biology majors, at least until they have organismal biology, and then, they go to psychology or some other major.
I came into
science
class already a psychology major.
I know.
You just
I just solidified your decision.
No, I came this close to double majoring.
I know. I see it as a personal failure on my part to convince you not, that you didn't double major in bio. But you are still at Emory, so that works out fairly well.
If it wasn't the second half of junior year when I took organismal, you probably would have been far more successful. Yeah,
I mean, sometimes you just have it's bad timing. That was a fairly bad year, as I recall. But in any case, it's just don't ask questions. When you talk to the admissions people, definitely see if you can talk to somebody in the biology department, faculty members. If you wanted to talk to students, we could get you in touch with students, usually my students, because they're kind of like, oh, sure, we'll talk to people. But that's the thing. It's kind of like if the faculty aren't available to talk to you from the institution that you're interested in going to, if the admissions people don't know a lot about the department that you're interested in. These are like all warning signs that you're kind of like, is that a program I'm going to be happy, in? And I think most of the bio majors are pretty happy with, their friends in the department, with the faculty in the department. I mean, we know everybody. It's not like we don't know who you are. It's like after I've had you for sometimes the entire freshman year, 2 weeks into the class, I know who you are, I know where you're from, I know what your family does, I know which dorm you live in, I know, what your interests are. So it's more like you feel like you're at home at Emory because everybody knows your business, which some people don't mind that. And some people are like, well, I want a little bit more anonymity. And I'm like, well, then you should have gone to a school that's got more than 1,000 people in it if you wanted to be anonymous. Go to UVA where they got like 30,000 people and then, nobody's going to know who you are. But there are problems associated with that. But any other questions you guys have before I turn you back over to Rachel, because I've gone like over by 3 minutes. But as Rachel will tell you, Dr. A just never shuts up. It's just the way he is.
In Gen Bio, for the lab component, is that just going to be animal dissections, or what else will be in the lab part?
So for Gen Bio, you do a lot of, this fall is going to be a little bit weird because of, the way the schedule is set up because of the ongoing pandemic. But normally you do projects, like team projects. You do 3 different projects that are multi-week projects for Gen Bio. Essentially, you design a project looking at ant behavior using ants as kind of like your first project, and you get into the scientific method and you do things like that. You do a biodiversity project where we take you out to the Bartlett Crow Field Station, kind of walk you through the area, and you and your group develop some type of project that's going to take you about 3 weeks to do out there at the Bartlett Crow Field Station. Maybe you're going to survey butterfly diversity in different habitats at the field station, or looking at frog population densities in different bodies of water around the station. Maybe you're doing a plant survey of different plants as you go up in elevation from the wetlands area up to the drier part. So it's kind of, you do a project like that, and then you guys put together, a presentation and you present it to the rest of the class. The whole group does that. Then you're going to do a genetics-based project where either with plants or animals, you're going to do, tissue collection, DNA extractions, PCR amplifications, and some bioinformatics, phylogeny reconstruction with those. And then the last project we usually have you do is kind of one, it's also tied to genetics, where you actually do kind of a manipulative experiment with plants, kind of exposing them to different degrees of UV radiation, or alter the environment that they live in to kind of enhance mutations in the plants. But there, depending on who's teaching the course, there may be different variations of the projects. But that's what you do in Gen Bio. And then in organismal bio, which is the course that I teach, you do a lot of dissections of animals, some plant stuff, a lot of biodiversity, like looking at the different species that represent particular groups and characteristics. So it's like a basic, zoology, botany type class. And then you get into genetics later down. That would be the next course after that, where, again, you're doing a lot of wet work in the lab. So every course has, every course that we teach in biology that's, a 4-credit real course, they all have a lab associated with it. So, and each lab, it reinforces what we talk about in lecture. So it's much more, it's the hands-on part of what we were talking about in lecture. So it allows us to kind of cover more, because the way I do organismal bio, it's kind of like Rachel will tell you, you get a lot of stuff between lecture and lab, and I'm trying to incorporate more projects into it, but this fall is going to be it's going to be weird with I was going to say post-pandemic, but we're still going to be in the pandemic in the fall, and I'm hoping that we don't get hit with a second wave with cold and flu season coming in the second half of the semester. But I figure if I plan for that to happen, it won't happen. But if I don't plan for it, then it's gonna hit me in the face. I'm gonna be like, gee, we have to do the entire course online, this semester. So, but in any case, I'll let you guys go. You have my contact information through the website. Check it out. Rachel also knows how to get a hold of me. If you have questions, if your parents have questions, if you have ideas about, projects that you're interested in, we can always kick the can around and figure things out. And then, once you get on the ground in Emory, come find me up in my office. When you got a free 5 minutes, it's like Rachel said, I'm always there. So it's kind of, you can shoot me an email and set up a time, and then we'll meet face to face and talk biology. And when you come to visit campus, Landon, ask if you can sit in on a class, sit in on one of the bio courses, and then come see me, and we'll talk more. Okay? All right, guys. It was nice to meet you. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you soon enough, I'm sure. Okay?
Thank you.
Right. You're welcome. Yep, I'll see you, Rachel. If you need me, let me know. See you guys.
Bye.
All right, Landon and Abigail. Goodbye. Enjoy the rest of your day and your weekend.
You too.
Bye.